Welcome to Tawlet El Sifra dinner table, or common grounds. Basically, dinner table is the actual name for the channel. Tawlet El Sifra is the Arabic name. Today, I want to talk to you about again my background, my history. When my family moved to the United States back in '78, it was before from Iraq. It was before Saddam was in power. His party was in power, but he wasn't the president. And then we came here. I was fine. I just loved the United States. All I wanted to do or be is just an American. Communications with my friends from back home was very scarce. We could only do letters, and that would take more than a month to get a letter there and return. So it was difficult, and I just wanted to assimilate and become part of the new life that I'm in. Plus, I knew that this is my new place, my new country, my new identity, and I just wanted to be part of it. So I did everything I could just to be an American. I went to college here in Tennessee, and I got my engineering degree. And then I started looking for jobs, and I did. I looked for jobs. My first jobs I got first job was in Atlanta, and I stayed there. I got maybe one or two others, and then I started contacting some of my friends who also are from Iraqi background, who had come to the United States and lived in big cities with other people. In Tennessee and in Georgia at the time, there were not a whole lot of Middle Easterners, specifically Arabs, in the area, but there were a lot of them that had immigrated, and went to different areas where they wanted to be together, like others from Iraq and different countries. I didn't care about those places. I just loved the areas. I didn't care about being part of a bigger community that is Iraqi. I just felt an outsider. By then I had assumed the personality that I felt like an outsider to the Iraqi community in San Diego and in Michigan, all those places where there's a lot of Iraqi immigrants are. But I liked the areas, and the young people like myself had a lot of things to do. So I would actually get a ticket for the weekend. From Atlanta, I go to San Diego, visit there for the weekend. We go party, me and my friends, and then fly back, take the overnight flight, the red eye, come back to Atlanta, and then start work on Monday. I mean, I didn't do it every week, but I probably did it maybe once a month. And during that time when I was doing that, I was in Atlanta for about 5 years. When I was doing that, some of my friends in those areas in San Diego, they told me that the naval station there, in the downtown area close to the borders of San Diego and America and Mexico, were hiring. They were hiring civil engineers. So I sent my resume. They called me over the phone, and they interviewed me, and they hired me. So, and then the next thing I know, I mean, I accepted the offer. Next thing I know, they sent the movers to take my car and everything. They packed everything in the apartment, and they moved it to San Diego. I went there, rented a house, a very small, tiny apartment, and moved everything there. I was living in a 1440 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2 baths, a full kitchen, and a living room and a sunroom apartment. And I moved to a 700 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, just an extension to the living room that they called the kitchen, had kitchen appliances there, in San Diego, and I was paying more there than I was in Atlanta. What part of the attraction of going there was that my salary was almost doubling. So I thought, well, that's great. I'm going to go there and make more money. No, that wasn't the case. it was so expensive that I ended up with a lot less money at the end of the month than I did when I was living in Atlanta. I A lot of people don't know this, but it the cost of living at that time between Atlanta and San Diego was humongous. Knoxville was even worse. It was a lot less expensive than San Diego. So anyway, that's what I wanted to do. I went there because I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to work for the Navy, and I'm working for the Public Works Center there in the Naval Station. And we serviced 7 or 8 military stations. So we were out doing something in one of the military stations everywhere. Camp Pendleton, we went to the island there, Coronado, and many others. And I loved being there because of the weather, and I also hated being there because of the weather. Because here in this part of town, the country between Knoxville, Atlanta, all the east here, I can see 4 seasons. I know that it's time for kids to go to school because the leaves are falling, and there's a change in that kind of atmosphere. That wasn't the case in San Diego. Every day was gorgeous, but every day was the same weather. After a while, it does get boring, and it did for me. That was one strike. The other strike, of course, I told you about the cost of living. And then the third one was more like the friends that I went to see, they all had lives. That when I went to see them, they made time for me to have fun with. But when I lived there, they all had their lives. They were not interested in doing what I wanted to do or what I saw us doing. So, and that was fine with me. I mean, I wasn't a party person, but I wanted to see my friends, and I felt too far. It was too far from my family, my parents. My family were still in Knoxville. When I was in Atlanta, I go see them all the time, or they come and see me. Well, now it's a plane ride, and it's an expensive plane ride. So it took, there were a lot of things that I did not know. I felt like, okay, I'm going to try it. But when I tried it, there were a lot of negatives. The American friends that I made had also a different lifestyle. The ones that I had made friends with at work, they either all had their own families already, or they didn't care about just, doing things. They wanted to just go on the beach, put a bonfire, sit around, drink, that kind of thing. And I was not into that. And life over there was so casual that their casual is completely different than our casual here in the east side of the United States. I joke with people and say, when I moved from Iraq to Atlanta, I mean the South, I didn't feel a cultural shock. This is a nice area, conservative lifestyle. When I moved from the South to California, I felt a big shock, cultural shock. So anyway, I stayed there a year, and during that time, I had met my husband, who I met in Knoxville for a wedding, and he had asked me to marry him, and I accepted, and we were gonna get married and move to New Jersey, which is where he lived and he worked, and we wanted to be close to his family because his dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we knew that we didn't have long time with him, so we just wanted to spend time with him. And I was able to transfer with the Navy. I went from the naval station to Lakehurst. Life in New Jersey was horrible. My drive from home to Lakehurst was an hour and a half. We lived in Edison, and to Lakehurst, I had to leave every day at 5:30 in the morning to be able to get to work at 7. and then to work 10 hours so I can have Friday off. I would leave there about 4:30 and I make it home by 6. If there was anything that needs to be done to the house, the plumber or any modification that I needed to wait for a service guy or anything like that, and my husband couldn't make it, I had to take off half a day, if not a full day. So, and the people there, I didn't see them. The American, the people who are native to New Jersey, I didn't find them as friendly as I did here in the South. So, and then plus his dad was very sick, so we spent most of the time in the hospitals. I wasn't too close to his family. They were not too close to me. Of course, they had their dad who was sick and they didn't have time for me. So it was like a lot of different, different complications that I just was not happy there. So we decided, okay, let's move south. Let's go somewhere close to my family. I chose Atlanta because at the time I knew that the opportunities for work was a lot more available for us in Atlanta than it is in Tennessee. And that's what happened. We went to Atlanta. I got a job with the Cobb County Water System, and he got a job with a software company called, I want to say KnowledgeWare, I think so. I think that's what it was called. Frank Tarkenton was the CEO of that company. Anyway, so we stayed another 5 years. Life was good. I enjoyed, going back to my old town. I had a lot of fun in the first 5 years. Pre-marriage, I had a lot more fun later, not as much, but a lot of fun after I went back with my friends that I knew before and made new friends. And we were fine there. But then my husband kept saying that let's go to Knoxville. I didn't like the fact that he wanted us to go to Knoxville because I wasn't sure the opportunities are available for us for work. But he kept saying, let's take our time, let's look and go to Knoxville. We're here by ourselves. Over there, you have big family, so let's get close to the family. By then, we were trying for more than 5 years, trying to get pregnant, and we weren't able to. So I, after a while, thought, okay, well, let's do that. At least I'll be close to the nieces and nephews, rather than just be alone here with nobody. And we weren't succeeding getting pregnant. So we moved to Knoxville. After that, we were in Knoxville about a year before we did get pregnant. And and again, I'll explain to you later about that, how that happened and how it was basically a miracle. The whole time we were in Atlanta, we were under medical supervision. We were waiting for the doctor to call every day so we know what kind of which medication to take and how many ampules I have to be injected with. And then every month it was a failure. Then when the doctor told us, that's it, there's the next step is just to take a rest for about 6 months, and then come back and we'll double the injection dosages, and hopefully we'll get enough eggs to do the in vitro. Well, that's when we stopped and moved to Knoxville, and that's when we got pregnant. And I firmly believe that was an act of God, that God decided to say to us, it's not up to the medications, it's not up to medical procedures, it's not up to anything, it's all up to me. And we just have to have the faith in God to tell us, what to do and just to accept it. And I was very, very happy. I'm very thankful. God has been so good to us, so good to me, so good to my son. It's just wonderful. And I'm always thankful. That's the first thing, and the last thing I always think of is how thankful I am to the life that I have in the United States, having a kid, having my family, everybody. Well, shortly after that was 1996 is when we had our kid, and and by then I was just, I didn't think of where I came from or anything like that. All I cared about is me working and producing and becoming a family and having a future as an American, just like every other American. I was living the American dream. Everything that I know about the American dream was a reality to me at that time. Well, September 11 hit shortly after that. Well, first it was the Tulsa, was it Oklahoma City? Oklahoma City. First, it was Oklahoma City bombing, which scared us all. And then shortly after that, it was September 11, which is the biggest tragedy in the history of not just America, but all of us Americans who live here. That changed immediately. That changed and exposed how people think of us, see us, and what they actually feel about us, how they feel about us. So I didn't realize that at first. When it first happened, I was part of the Americans who were shocked. I did not believe, I did not see it as me. I did not see those, I don't know how many people, 16 or 20 or whatever criminals, that the terrorists that did this. I did not think of them being Arabs. That means that they're related to me, that we're in the same type of species, because I had separated myself from all of that. Well, even if I did, the Americans that lived here did not see it that way. And I realized that very shortly after that. One of my biggest clients that I still love dearly and honor, and think that they're very, very respectable client, a huge organization here, who took me as a person and decided to give me a huge contract that requires me being the lead on a lot of things on that contract, and they trusted me with it. And I took it to heart. I did everything I could to make sure it's a success, and it was a success. Today, after all these years, they've not had one failure. A lot of municipalities everywhere in the United States had tried something and did not work, one thing or another, but not here. But anyway, so we move forward with September 11 happens, and then suddenly there were hard feelings on their side. Everybody, all the Americans had really hard feelings. They just suddenly started looking at people who are from that part of the world and shocked that people can do these kind of crimes, that innocent people living and working peacefully in their own thing, and then suddenly they're being killed. And what a way! I mean, what an awful way. So I didn't realize that I was lumped into that too. There was some of that. I didn't behave that way. I didn't take it as me part of that, but I noticed it from a few people. There was a meeting shortly after that. I can't remember whether it was 2 days or 5 days or whatever days after the September 11 that we had a project meeting that I was supposed to go for the meeting. They called me and said they want to wait. They're not going to have the meeting. They're going to wait and see whatever. So we changed the meeting. That's fine. Again, I looked at it from the perspective as they're hurt, just like I am, but somehow we're going to move forward. We can't just, we cannot be sitting here not moving the project. All this time I'm looking at it as the project is the one that's going to suffer, and we just have to do it. I didn't look at it as me being from Arab country and the people who committed these crimes are Arabs, therefore there's a correlation between us. So we actually have the meeting, and I go in, sit in the, there was, conference room, small conference room table. We're sitting there. We have the plans on the table, and most of the people there are fine. We're, we're doing small talk. We're waiting for everybody else to show up. And this one gentleman who's a good friend who came, who I kept working with. I worked with him the closest prior to that, and stayed in working relationship with him until just recently, until he retired recently. He walks into the meeting and he just looks at me and he says, "You get out." And I just look at him like, what is he saying? Does he mean that I get out of the meeting or what? And then as he's walking in and sitting down, he said, "All me and my buddies, the area where he works, which is not the same building where we were having the meeting, we all want you out of this country." And I had no answer. Nobody did. None of the people in that room had anything to say. We were all quiet. I don't know how we moved forward, but we moved forward. We somehow moved forward and started talking about the project, but I don't know how. Now when all these years later, 24, 25 years later, I still remember that. I still remember it like today. I didn't think at that time that it affected me. I never remember that afterwards I went home and I cried or anything like that. No, none of that. But that stuck in my head. I've repeated this story several times to different people. But somehow, at that time, I had a delayed reaction. It just didn't do anything. Plus, those days, there were none of this politically correct and you cannot do this and minorities, any of that stuff. When I came here, like I said, I considered myself an American and I wanted to earn everything just like any other Americans out there. There wasn't anything that I expected to be given just because of my background, whatever. And I still don't. I think that that's the right way. If I want to compete for something, I want to compete on it because I'm the right person for that job, not because of my background, not because of my gender. But unfortunately, that happens. People will say, well, this lady engineer applied for this job and we have all male. She's qualified. Let's give her the job. I'm qualified. Give me the job, but don't give me the job because I'm a female engineer. Give me the job because I'm qualified and I can do the work. But that's how it was. I don't know if anybody bent the rules just to let me in. I hope not, because I always advocate you give the right job for the right person because they deserve it and because they're qualified. That's always been my motto. And I taught that to my son, and my son also does not expect anything to be given to him just because of his background or our background. He's born and raised here in the United States. So after that, it's like almost like everybody's life changed. I don't know why, but I started feeling, okay, well, there are obviously bad people in that part of the country. Let me prove to the United States and everybody I know that they're good people. Let me show them there's those of us that love this country genuinely and appreciate this country because this country had given us the opportunity to live here, an opportunity to make a life there is no way we could live had we stayed in our hometowns, home countries. And I think that's how I started becoming an advocate as an immigrant Iraqi American who loves the United States, and I started voicing that more vocally. I was much more outspoken about how much I love and care about this country. Any organization out there that wants me to go talk to them about how I feel about the United States, I would gladly do that. And I wrote a few pieces, articles about that. And every time my parents both were parts of this civic organizations here in this town, and any chance that there was a lot of interest in the Arabs and the Arab countries, and I always volunteer to go speak to them about where we came from, the culture, what we had in those days, and how we appreciate what it ended up being, which is the reason why we left, and how much we appreciate this country. I think that was the beginning of it. I always felt like sort of guilty, even though I didn't feel guilty, but I always felt like I've got to show the Americans who are here, people like me are not like the people who do these crimes. Now, mind you, when the Oklahoma bombing happened, people were saying, when September 11 happened, people were saying, well, the Oklahoma bombing happened and those were white people. So why are you blaming all Middle Easterners? Why are you doing this? That's human nature. That is human nature. We can't change that. Even though the Oklahoma bombing happened by a white person, and then another crime happened by Middle Easterners or any other minority, everybody is going to look at that minority in a different spotlight. That's just human nature. They're not going to look at every white person as a criminal after Oklahoma. It's just, it's not possible. So that argument doesn't hold any water. It's just not there. But it is that happens when they look at all the Arabs and say, all Arabs are like that. Now, what I want to do at that time, I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna poke hole in that thought process. I'm gonna make them realize that even though there are all those criminals that did this tragedy to the United States that's unprecedented and hopefully never happens again, nothing like that will happen again. But I'm gonna poke hole in the idea that all Arabs are like that. All Arabs are criminals. All Arabs hate America. All Arabs are, no, that's not true. And I wanted to bring that and take that with me. And I started doing that more and more. Now, I'm going to stop here at this video because I want to focus on when the Iraq war happened, and I went to Iraq on the next video. But right now, I just want to tell you that that was my mission after September 11 and after that meeting I had, and how that changed the way I was moving. Before that, I never saw me any different than anybody else in the room, no matter who they are. All the Americans, all the people I worked with, everybody. But when that happened, I thought, okay, well, I can't make them change how they see me, but I can change the way they think of me. I am forever thankful and appreciative of what America had done, which is what led me to go to Iraq, and I'll talk to you about that in the next video. Thank you, and I'll be talking to you soon.